We are 5 games into the season, and the Seahawks find themselves at 3-2 after a crushing loss at home to the Bucs. It's a solo voyage today, as I break down what we saw in that one and look ahead to the showdown against the Jaguars. I'll also use this chance to speak on Sam Darnold and what we've seen from Seattle's new quarterback so far. Let's light him up. I'm Jacson Bevins, and this is Cigar Thoughts. Welcome back to the Cigar Lounge. I am Jacson Bevins, and along with my iridescent producer, Mike Barwin, this is the Cigar Thoughts podcast. And look, once in a while, I get the chance to do a one-man show, and while I love and honestly prefer getting to pick the brains of the really sharp guests we've been fortunate to have, it is kind of nice to just riff a little bit, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first, cigars and whiskey. Cigar Thoughts is proud to be partnered with Seattle Cigar Concierge and Balvenie Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Seattle Cigar Concierge and I have teamed up to release 2 versions of high-quality Cigar Thoughts stogies, both of which you can purchase by following the link on the show page or by visiting cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Mike and I love doing this show, and there are 2 ways y'all listening and watching can help support it so we can keep these episodes coming. One is by purchasing the cigars, and the other is by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts, where you can watch full episodes as well as the funny and insightful clips that Mike puts together. Give a thumbs up to the stuff you like and let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts. Now look, I want to be completely honest with you. It is a totally different format doing this on my own without getting the feedback that you get from conversations. Like I said at the top, just riffing a little bit here. So, bear with me as we navigate it. But even though the Seahawks lost, that was one of the most enjoyable football games I've watched in a long time. And I'm excited to talk more about that. Honestly, this has been a hectic and frankly wonderful stretch for the Seattle sports scene this fall, with the Mariners postseason push, including Cal Raleigh's MVP chase, the relatively hot start from the Seahawks, Sunday's game notwithstanding. That combined with the sometimes all-encompassing demands of Mike and I's day jobs has made scheduling with guests a bit of a challenge recently, but it is important to us that we keep doing this show, and this show is one of my favorite things to do. So the fact that we get to make it feels like a huge blessing, and we're super grateful to all of you who check in with this on a regular basis, who've been asking when the next episode is going to be. Fear not, we've still got a remarkable lineup of folks set to join us this season. We're just navigating as best we can with the shifting schedules everyone has. So today, you're stuck with me. But let's get to it. This game on Sunday was amazing. And it starts with the uniforms, honestly. This might be the all-time fit bowl for the NFL, with both the Bucs and the Seahawks celebrating coming into the league together 50 years ago. It's been a really long journey for both teams. Started with a lot of lows for both franchises, and both teams have tasted the highest of highs since then. And right now, both teams look pretty good. So not only was the game itself very aesthetically pleasing from just an offensive standpoint and execution standpoint, the players looked excellent out there. And it was just so cool to see these 2 teams make the actual sport look as good as the uniforms did. Frankly, the Bucs throwbacks, the Seahawks throwbacks, they're my 2 favorite uniforms in all of the NFL. Right up there, actually, with the Cowboys Thanksgiving uniforms with the white helmets. But yeah, that was really, really cool to see. And frankly, we saw 2 offenses executing at a super high level. And it was cool to see it done by 2 quarterbacks who both came into the league very highly touted, both top 5 picks, and both of who, for one reason or another, didn't make it with their original teams, didn't make it with their next team, or even their next team. But then here they are, earning contracts where their franchises have said, you're our guy. We're going to throw real money behind the fact that you're our guy. Now go out there and kill it. And both of these quarterbacks have been killing it this year. There is a case to be made that Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield have been playing the very highest level of the position so far this season. And, you know, we saw it with Geno Smith recently here in Seattle, seeing a guy that was kind of left for dead, seen as a bust, maybe just at best a career backup moving forward, get their opportunity to shine and really capitalize on it. Not only from a personal financial standpoint, earning big contracts, but also helping their teams win a lot of games and be a lot more competitive than I think a lot of people thought they would be, bringing them in. And, you know, this game ended up being a 38-35 Bucs win, but it started off kind of slow. In fact, it was pretty ugly on the Seahawks end. And I don't really know what is up with this team at home. It's been slow starts consistently for a long time now. You know, what was once the best home field advantage, arguably in all of American sports, is maybe not even advantage at all anymore. I think over the last 3 seasons of the Pete Carroll era, they were 13-12 at home, which was worse than their road record. And in the Mike McDonald era, they are, I believe, 3-8 at home, which is much worse than their road record in that time. And I don't really know what to chalk that up to. But oftentimes for these home games, they just are so sluggish at the start. And that was the case in this game. I mean, you had that completely unnecessary option fumble where they put in Jalen Milroe and he tried to pitch it to Walker. And you could tell the synergy just wasn't there on that play. Bucs recovered that. Jason Myers, who's been excellent. He's only missed one kick this year coming into the game, and that one was tipped at the line of scrimmage. He misses a kick from a distance. I think it was like 44 yards that he never misses from. And the Bucs jumped out to a 13-0 lead where it was looking kind of sketchy. But then, man, there is something about this offense that is different than any Seahawks offense we've seen since honestly 2020, when Brian Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator and Russell Wilson was the MVP favorite through the first half of the season and DK Metcalf was the leading receiver in the NFL. I mean, they really showed that they can air it out if they need to. And that is something that, for as efficient as the Seahawks offense has been so far this year, for the most part, I was curious, okay, if they find themselves in a truly negative game script, are they built to just air it out? If they can't just rely on running the ball and play action, can they go down and score? Can they score quickly? Can they score multiple times in a row? And yes, the Buccaneers defense was missing a lot of guys, especially in the secondary, but you still have to execute. And that's what we saw. You know, Sam Darnold was absolutely electric in this game. And it's not just the stat line. It's not just the fact that he was 28 of 34 and he threw for like 350 yards and had all the touchdowns. Some of the plays were just pure talent plays. This was not someone just constricted to operating within the confines of the plays that are called and within the offensive scheme. When the plays weren't there as designed, Sam Darnold got off script, got out of structure, and made some of the best throws that we've seen in the NFL so far this season. His connection with Jacson Smith-Njigba feels like, I mean, it feels as good as just about any. Maybe the only one better so far this year was on the other side of the ball with Baker Mayfield and JSN's former high school teammate Emeka Egbuka. And these two quarterback wide receiver duos are just trading haymakers all game long. Granted, again, both teams with totally wiped out secondaries. And I'm not going to sit here and say that either offense was going to put up this type of performance if both defenses were at full strength. But you get far enough into an NFL season, no one's at full strength anymore. So you play with what you got and you take advantage of what you can take advantage of. And both these teams did it. And it's a shame the Seahawks lost, and it's a shame they lost the way that they did, because they worked so hard to not only come back and tie this game up, they actually took a lead with 4 minutes left with just a remarkable comeback. And it felt like they were just going to score a touchdown every single time they touched the ball. The 4th and 2 touchdown to Torrey Horton, that play from Sam Darnold, he's had like probably 4 plays so far this year that are legitimately jaw-dropping, and that might have been the best of it. I mean, choosing to go for it on 4th and 2, choosing not to run, putting the ball in the hands of your quarterback, and then the read that you design isn't there, and then the second read isn't there, and now pressure is on your right-handed quarterback, forcing him to his right, and for him to step up in the pocket, pivot out to his left, and just whip that throw to Horton in the end zone. I mean, it was amazing. So Seattle's up 7. Of course, Baker Mayfield, like he's done every game this season, it seems like, drives them right back down to tie it up. And then Seattle has one last chance. And it really felt like they were just going to go get 3 first downs and kick a field goal and win this game. But disaster struck. And, it's too bad, because I know I was really hard on the decision to bring in Sam Darnold earlier this season. And frankly, all offseason, that's a drum that I banged. And I'm going to talk about that more a little bit later on in the show. Don't worry. But in both of Seattle's losses now, it has been last possession turnovers from Sam Darnold. And this is something that plagued Geno Smith. Geno Smith, during his time in Seattle, had the most game-winning drives of any quarterback in the NFL during the 3 years that he was here. And it looked like Sam Darnold was going to be able to do that in this one. He's now 0 for 2 doing that. And I'm not saying that to justify any knocks on Darnold, because I think he's been exceptional so far this year. But it is a shame that it's now happened in the 2 opportunities that he's had to go down and win a game. And, obviously there was the strip sack at the end of the 49ers game in week 1. On this one, it was a pass that, he said after the game he was just trying to throw away. And I believe him. I think he was just trying to get it past the line of scrimmage, throw it incomplete at the feet of a receiver, live to fight another down, and it deflects off a player's helmet in a way that pops straight up in the air. It's picked off by the Bucs in field goal range. They kick the field goal. It's over. It actually makes the Bucs the first team in NFL history to win 4 of their first 5 games, none of which were by more than 3 points. So I don't know exactly how sustainable that is for them, but I'm also just a huge believer in Baker Mayfield, so maybe it is. But it was a shame that it ended the way that it did, because I fear that it obscures a little bit just how good Sam Darnold, Jacson, Smith-Njigba, and the rest of this offense was in that game. So really difficult loss to take, but one that honestly, for me, considering all the injuries and just the flow of the game, isn't super discouraging. While we're on the subject, I do want to talk about Sam Darnold. And look, I won't hide from the fact that I was extremely skeptical of the decision to bring him in. In fact, there are a lot of you who make sure I'm aware of that every single time I open up Twitter and Blue Sky, as if I don't remember my own opinion. And I get it. It's tough when you're tuning in for coverage and insight of your favorite team, and the guy that you're tuning into is expressing pretty severe doubts about the big offseason acquisition. And I don't hold any of the backlash I felt since then against anyone, because I believe strongly in the value of dunking on incorrect takes. But I will say this: for as consistent as I was this offseason about my unhappiness with the franchise's decision to move on from Geno Smith, I do believe I've been equally consistent about saying, A, I hope that I'm wrong, and B, I am willing to adjust my opinion with new information. Anyone who spent 14 years or any of the 14 years reading the Cigar Thoughts articles or been following this show for any of the last 4 years, I think that that's true. My goal is not to have a take and then just die on that hill. My goal is to have the most informed opinion of this team and of football in general as I can. And look, man, there is new information to work with. And I don't mind saying it. I was wrong. Or at least that's how it's looking through 5 games, because Sam Darnold has been absolutely ripping it so far this season. And while Geno is leading the NFL in interceptions in Las Vegas, Sam Darnold is number one in the NFL in deep ball accuracy. He's number one in EPA per play. Now, this isn't an offense that's just built on Sam Darnold go win the game for us. It's been very low volume from a passing standpoint. I think they came into this game averaging just 25 pass attempts, which was near the bottom of the league. But they've been so absurdly efficient on those plays, made all the more remarkable by the fact that they just haven't been able to run the ball nearly as well as I think a lot of us were hoping. So, I mentioned the out of structure throws. I mentioned the connection with Jacson, Smith-Njigba. I mean, I have so much more confidence in this offense and in this quarterback than I anticipated having all season. And, I say all the time that the NFL season is made up of a bunch of mini seasons within it. And we're kind of coming out of that first mini season. And for as excellent as Sam Darnold was for the vast majority of last year, there's no way around it. He did crumble in the last couple of games. But we're now looking at, what is it, like 20 of his last 22 games as a starter where he's been pretty fucking good. And I'm willing to lean more into that than I am to those bad games he had at the end of last season. He has historically been a very pressure sensitive quarterback. Gray Zabel and the Clint Kubiak scheme has really mitigated a lot of that pressure. But even when pressured, he's been really good this year. And if that continues, I think he has the opportunity to shake this reputation of not being able to perform at the highest level when the chips are down. Now, again, 0 for 2 in game-winning drives so far this year, turnovers both times, but those are small sample sizes. And I believe the talent that we've seen from the rest of his body of work is sufficient for me to believe that he can come through when necessary. And of course, like anything else, we'll adjust as new information comes in. But I got to say, I am just so encouraged so far. And, I think the last thing that I want to say about this past game is it's really hard to see a defense that's been so good so far this season give up 38 points. But there's just only so much starting caliber talent in the NFL. And teams can only be so deep given the limitations of roster sizes and the salary cap, and frankly, just the dearth of real top end talent league wide. And so when you lose Julian Love, who is a Pro Bowl caliber, borderline all pro level safety, and you lose Devin Witherspoon, who is the same thing as a nickel corner, and you don't have all your pass rush, it does make it tough, especially against an offense as competent as the Bucs. So it was a disappointing performance, but I am willing to just kind of put it into a shoebox, close the lid, and shove it under the bed as its own self-contained thing. Now, if they go out and the Jaguars hang 40 on them against a full strength defense or a close to full strength defense, then I'll adjust that opinion. But when we've seen this team on the field with the majority of its starting talent, they've been excellent. I don't really see any reason to feel like that has changed. Just got to get those guys healthy. All of this leads us to a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend that is suddenly looking much bigger than it did on the schedule a month ago. Remarkably, the Jags are 4-1. They're coming into this one hot off a thrilling win against the Chiefs on Monday night, which, is got to rank as one of the biggest regular season wins in Jaguars franchise history, even though they were 3-1 facing a 2-2 team. No one really gave them a chance. They were underdogs. They were down 14-0 in that game. They had a goal line fumble. It just looked like the same old Jags. And yet there they were coming back. They get a 99-yard pick six off of Patrick Mahomes. They get the game-winning touchdown drive at the end. As hard as they tried to shoot themselves in the foot with mistakes and self-inflicted wounds, they still came through and they won a huge game. So they're going to be flying high even off of a short week. The belief in what they've got going, and their new coach is super high right now. And I think most of us just penciled this in as a win for the Seahawks when the schedule release came out, and it's not that anymore. This is going to be a really difficult one to win. And if you had told me before the season the Jags were going to be 4-1, I would have assumed that it's because their new head coach, Liam Cohen, who is kind of one of those new, young, offensive genius scheme lords from the Madden generation that elevated the Bucs offense last year. I would have assumed he would have had Trevor Lawrence in this offense, just setting the world on fire, that Brian Thomas was going nuts, that Travis Hunter was the truth and couldn't be stopped. But that's not the case. They're winning because they have a suddenly excellent defense that's leading the NFL in turnovers forced, and trench play that's been honestly awesome on both sides of the ball. So if the Seahawks are going to win this game, they will need to be healthy on defense, because I don't think the type of errors that we're used to seeing from teams like the Jaguars, teams with that DNA, the Chargers, the Falcons, the Jets, the Giants, the Browns, these teams that even when things are going well, you just kind of back of your head say, okay, how are they going to let themselves down? We're not seeing that from the Jaguars this year. And when they have made those mistakes, their execution on their good plays has been good enough to overcome it. So this is not a win that's just waiting for Seattle. They're going to have to go take this one. And until you got Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon and Reek Willen back on the field, I think that's going to be a pretty tall order. So I'm optimistic that those guys will be back. And if Love and Witherspoon and Woolen are playing, I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win. If they're not, it's kind of hard to make a case how they win this game. Certainly without a couple of high leverage breaks going their way. And I think the last thing that I'm going to say with this episode is with regards to Tariq Woolen, who I just mentioned. He's become Seahawks fans' new favorite punching bag. And I get it. But all I'll say is this. Everyone wants Reek Woolen gone until it's time to live without Reek Woolen. And whether Reek earns a big contract extension in Seattle or not, it's now very clear how much worse the coverage is with him off the field. I'm not going to pretend that he hasn't had multiple high leverage mistakes so far this year, but he has also been excellent in coverage on the vast majority of his snaps. And without him out there on Sunday, Bucs receivers were running wild and free. I mean, so many of the big plays in both halves of this game for the Bucs offense were just clear either miscommunications in Seattle's secondary or straight up misplaying the ball and being sucked in by double moves or play action that, whatever you want to say about Reek Woolen, doesn't happen with him with near the frequency, nor do these other guys in the secondary have the physical tools to make up for an early mistake in a play. It's just at full strength. I still truly believe the Seattle defense has the potential to be one of the elite defenses in the NFL, but they're going to have a very difficult time being anything close to that if they have to run replacement level guys out there in the secondary. And there's been a lot of talk about trading Reek Woolen, and so many of you out there, you want your pound of flesh, and this guy's been pissing you off, so trade him. And it's so tough because it's the middle of the season. You're not going to get a player for him, most likely. So in a league where attrition is like 60% of team success, you got to have talent. You can't just take away one of your better players on defense. And yes, he is one of the better players on this defense, and just expect that there's going to be addition by subtraction because he's had a couple of big blown coverages and a couple of penalties at times where you can't have him. It's because on the other 30 pass plays, he's been really good, and the advanced metrics bear that out. And when you lose that, all of a sudden you're just getting beat on all of those plays. And so, like I said, Godfather offer comes in, sure, you take it, but it's just so unlikely to happen at this point of the season. And if you are serious about making any kind of waves this year and making a postseason run, this team is going to need him out there regardless of how we feel about him. That's going to do it for today. Friends, I am so grateful that you tuned in, even without a guest. And I appreciate you bearing with me as I navigate flying solo on this one. So thank you again. And as always, you can find Mike and I on social media. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jacson Bevins. That's Jacson. Remember that no K is okay when spelling my name. Mike is on both at Mike Barwin, and the show itself is at Cigar Thoughts on Twitter and at CigarThoughtsNFL.com on Blue Sky. You can watch full video episodes on our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts and find the rest of our socials at CigarThoughtsNFL.com. As I mentioned previously, this episode is brought to you by Balvenie Premium Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of their lineup, and we are thrilled to have them on board as a sponsor of the show. And one of the great things about a great Scotch is how well it plays with a good cigar. So once again, we do have our own special releases of cigars that you can purchase at a terrific price as a listener of the show. These Cigar Thoughts Stogies have been successful enough for us to continue offering them for the low price of $149. That's right, only $149 for a bundle of 10. As many of you know, we partnered with one of the most prestigious cigar manufacturers in the world to release these official Cigar Thoughts cigars, which you can order directly from CigarThoughtsNFL.com or follow the link on the show page to get these easy-to-smoke stogies rolled with 13-year aged premium Dominican tobacco leaf, or hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. We'll send you the details directly. The cigars come with a Bovita humidification pack and a Mylar storage bag to make sure they stay fresh, whether you have a humidor or not. Of course, you can listen to this show at fieldgoals.com and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you like the show, drop us a 5-star rating and leave a quick review. Thank you to all of y'all listening for your continued support of the show. We know you've only got so much time for podcasts in your life, and it's an honor to be a part of that for y'all. Please know that by sharing the show on social media and with your friends, you give us the juice to keep making this happen. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, onwards and upwards, my friends.